and credence to my election as an openly gay woman in Western New York, to Judge Paul Feinman, to Judge Richter, to Judge Beth Gary. Those are the people that trailblazed it for us to make it possible. So it's really an honor to be here tonight. I want to thank Presiding Judge Renwick for inviting us to have this event here today. I've never been here before. This is a beautiful, historic courtroom, so thank you so much, Judge. The first speaker for tonight is going to be the Executive Director of the Failla Commission, who does so much work. He and Charlie Arrowood, he's in the back, who also is with the Failla Commission. They do most of the work of the Failla Commission, so we really appreciate them, and they put tonight together. So Matt Skinner, please.
All right, good evening, everybody, and I just want to really stress the thank you. So many people to thank tonight. All of our wonderful speakers who are going to follow me, thank you to them. The staff of the Appellate Division, I know they're going to be disappointed to not receive 30 emails from me every day tomorrow, but they've been wonderful and such wonderful hosts. And, you know, this started as a little kernel of an idea on a phone call with Judge Kahn maybe 3 months ago. Maybe we could do this at the Appellate Division. It would be a homecoming for so many people. And it came together, and I just want to thank the presiding justice and her team that has opened doors to us tonight to be in this beautiful place. My co-chairs, you just met one of them. The other one you'll meet a little later. The whole Failla Commission, my partner, Charlie, I shouldn't call, I hope my real partner isn't watching this, but I just, looking around this room, so many friends and colleagues. It's just so much love in this room. It feels great. I just wanted to share a couple quick anecdotes about sort of tied to Roz. I was at my law school's commencement for the first time since my commencement, which was in the spring of 2009, and I'll bring her into the story in a second, but to watch one of our former co-chairs give a commencement address. And this was a month ago, and you know, commencement ceremonies are long affairs, and there's like hundreds of names being read, so your mind can wander during parts of the ceremony. And I got thinking about, you know, what was I, when you go back to, I guess, your school's commencement, you can't help but wonder, what was I thinking during mine, right? Back of your program. And I couldn't believe I still found this on the internet, but it still lives on the internet. But, you know, I did have a memory of seeing this news alert, probably on a day I should have been doing my schoolwork. But reading this article and wondering, wow, these people, these two women sound fantastic, and what an achievement. And I wonder if I'll ever get a chance to meet these people. And so I was so thrilled when I started putting the program together that this article still lives on the internet, and it should, because it really was a big moment. And you know, being the first comes with sort of a heavy burden, and Roz has certainly carried that banner and made us all so proud and privileged to be people in her life. And you know, when you read the bio too, and the bio was sort of this is highly condensed, but all the organizations she's been on the boards of, all the committees, all the many other side projects. You know, it's you know, on a sad note, and one thing I did want to mention as I was thinking about this, this is my call to arms moment of my remarks, but one thing that saddens me a little bit is we are now back to the same level of representation on the Appellate Division that we were in March 2009. So we got a lot of work to do. We went up for a number of years. We've had a number of people retire, and we do not want to revert back to February of 2009 ever. So This is our maybe a shameless plug for our mentoring program that we've been working hard on, but we really we still got a lot of work to do. That's my reminder to all of us about that. But truthfully, it's been a real just pleasure and honor to have worked on so many projects with Roz. You know, one other thing I wanted to say was in, I think, February of 2020, moving forward 11 years from 2009, I got my first notice of a retirement party for Judge Richter. And sadly, I think we got another one or maybe two more with rescheduling, but 2020 was a very tough year to plan an in-person retirement party. And I think at some point there was just a resignation that it wasn't possible. So I know it's 4 years late, but I'm hoping, and I know there's been a whole other chapter in her career that she's since retired from in the meantime, but I think we're all thrilled to finally give Roz the retirement party she deserves. So thank you, Roz.
Thank you, Matthew. Judge Gary said earlier that Matthew Skinner being hired as the executive director was her major contribution to the Failla Commission. He's wonderful, so thank you so much, Matthew. Next, we have the Honorable Dianne T. Renwick, who is the presiding justice of the First Department Appellate Division. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Justice Hanlon, and good evening, everyone. My job is to welcome you to the Appellate Division First Department, and I'm really happy to do that, and especially this month, Happy Pride Month. It's my pleasure and honor to host the Richard C. Failla LGBTQ Commission of the New York Courts as it presents the 3rd Annual Paul G. Feinman Award to the Honorable Roz Richter. I couldn't be more pleased that this is happening right here. It's particularly special that we honor 2 outstanding former justices of the First Department, Justices Paul Feinman and Roz Richter, both of whom were founding members of the Failla Commission. Justices Feinman and Richter also contributed so much to the jurisprudence of our state and to maintaining this court's tradition of excellence. And it was my pleasure, my great pleasure, to have the opportunity to work with both of them during their tenure here. The LGBTQ community's impact on the jurisprudence of our state and throughout the country really cannot be overstated, although it's been underappreciated, perhaps. Fortunately, the Failla Commission has been at the forefront of addressing issues affecting LGBTQ employees and litigants in the court system since 2016. We know it's vital that our courts reflect principles of justice, not only in our decisions, but also in the image we present to the public. This court's architecture is exquisite, as has already been said, and its legal axioms do remain true today, but its imagery was exclusive, not inclusive. As you know, the only person of color here is the Native American who was on the seal of the city, I believe, at that time. So when this building was constructed between 1896 and 1900, nearly all of us were left out of the artistic depictions of justice. There were no women, no African Americans, no one who openly identified as LGBTQ+. Black men had only been granted the right to vote 30 years earlier, was mostly a fiction, and women weren't granted the right to vote for another 20 years. And LGBTQ+ people were ostracized, jailed, or worse if they lived openly. So for a number of reasons, I'm really very much aware of that history and eager to make our courthouse more reflective of our diverse society. So it's really fitting that the Failla Commission is honoring Justice Roz Richter, the first openly LGBTQ justice of the Appellate Division, First Department, in this space. To further diversify the court along those lines, we've installed now the first statue of a woman that's on our roof on equal footing with the all-male philosophers and lawgivers that have been there since 1900. We've held a number of public programs, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Pride Month, And recently, for the first time, we've diversified the art in this courtroom. You know, this is a landmark building, so we can't really nail things to the wall, change it, paint it. And we don't want to, because it is beautiful and it's all right. But we have introduced murals. They're small, but it's a start, by students in our civics education initiative from the Martin Luther King High School for Law Advocacy and Community Justice. And I'm particularly pleased to point out that we are still reaping benefits in a number of ways from Justice Richter's legacies. But she established the court's connection with this particular high school where she was teaching, the Martin Luther King High School, and the Pencil Project a decade ago. And so we have rekindled that relationship, and it's that class led by the teacher who you built that relationship with that did these murals. So we're really happy about that. Judge Paul Feinman was an exemplary jurist, of course, and an amazing human being, and he and Roz share those attributes. He was kind, generous, thoughtful, stoic, and strong. What I remember mostly about Paul was his warmth and generosity. Around Passover and Hanukkah, he'd always bring some homemade treat to the court that he would make, and he'd always make 3 special bags for each of my sons. He was a cherished colleague and is still deeply missed. Judge Roz Richter was an outstanding colleague as well, of course, always prepared with focused and probing questions, often on policy implications and impacts of our decisions. I know that Justice Richter cared deeply about this court, and I enjoyed her advice and counsel and many conversations about improving this court. She has always been motivated to make a difference in the law and continues to do so even after stepping down from 30 years on the bench. Given her notably influential tenure on the court, particularly here at the Appellate Division First Department, and her many contributions to advancing the law for people with disabilities and those in the LGBT community, it is so fitting that she is presented with the Paul G. Feinman Award in this august courtroom. So congratulations, Roz, on a terrific career.
Thank you so much, Justice Renwick. Next, we have the Honorable Norman St. George, who is the first Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the New York court system.
Good evening. Happy Pride Month. I'm Judge Norman St. George. I'm privileged to serve as the first Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the New York State Trial Courts, and I am really delighted to join you here, each of you here this evening, for the 3rd annual Judge Paul G. Feinman Award ceremony in honor of the late, remarkable, and innovative Court of Appeals Judge Paul G. Feinman. I want to first thank Executive Director Matthew Skinner for the invitation to join you here this evening, and co-chairs the Honorable Karen Lupuloff and the Honorable Grace Hanlon and the entire Failla Commission for this evening's amazing, really amazing program, and for the tremendous and important work that each of you do every day. Let me start by thanking our Chief Judge, Rowan D. Wilson, and our Chief Administrative Judge, the Honorable Joseph A. Zayas, for their incredible and amazing leadership and vision. I want to thank our Titan of Justice, Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for Justice Initiatives, the Honorable Edwina G. Richardson, for all she does every day, and our Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the New York City Courts, the Honorable Deborah A. Kaplan, for what she does every day. We are all striving to make the New York State courts the very best that they can be in all ways. And to quote our Chief Judge, the goal is to make our courts better than you can even imagine. Think about that. Better than you can imagine. And that necessarily includes the Failla Commission and all of you. I want to thank the Honorable Dianne T. Renwick, Presiding Justice of the Appellate Division, First Department, for her remarkable stewardship of the Appellate Division, First Department, and for hosting this wonderful evening in her home court and the home of so many legal giants. A lot of you are here this evening with us, and I see almost all of the appellate, probably all of the Appellate Division, First Department justices here, all the way from the Third Department, Presiding Justice Gary here with us this evening. I want to congratulate this year's Paul G. Feinman Award recipient, the Honorable Rosalyn Richter, retired Justice of the Appellate Division, First Department, and founding member of this commission, and a legal giant. Before, during, and after her stellar 30-year career in our courts, Justice Richter has been a pioneer, trailblazer, and a defender of justice. Judge Richter. Judge Richter, I could think of no one more fitting to receive this accolade, who lifts up the members of the LGBTQ community, the legal community, and our entire court community. You are truly an inspiration to all of us. So on behalf of our entire court family, I want to express our court's appreciation for the Failla Commission and all that you do to promote equal access to and equal participation in our court system by all persons, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Congratulations to the Commission's newest members, the Honorable Seth M. Marnin and the Honorable Javier E. Vargas. Welcome. Congratulations. Recently appointed by Chief Judge Wilson. This commission is strong, with dedicated and accomplished jurists and attorneys whose combined efforts in the pursuit of equal justice is unmatched. The commission and its members provide fabulous training and advance our awareness of social issues to maximize our ability to provide effective, efficient, and appropriate justice to all who seek redress in our courts and to all who work in our courts. I applaud the Commission's efforts to enhance diversity within our courts and on our bench. As we know, a broad range of diverse ethnicities, lifestyles, and experience provide us with a richer, more meaningful approach to the matters we are tasked with resolving so that the rights of everyone are recognized and protected. To paraphrase President John F. Kennedy, the rights of every person are diminished when the rights of one person is threatened. The spirit of this sentiment is epitomized by the work of everyone in this room. So let's keep up the great work. Enjoy the program. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have, he's very tall. Next, we have the Honorable Deborah A. Kaplan, who is the Deputy Chief Administrative Judge for the New York City Courts.
Good evening, and thank you for lowering the microphone. Thank you all for being here this evening, and happy Pride Month. Thank you to the Failla Commission and the New York courts for sponsoring what has now become an annual event, the Paul G. Feinman Awards ceremony. So I will tell you, I come to this in a little different perspective. I wish more than anything that Judge Feinman, Paul, was still here with us. But this award bestowed in his memory offers some solace to me that he is remembered and that his legacy lives on. Judge Feinman was an extraordinary judge and an even more extraordinary human being. He was a leader, he was a mentor. He treated everyone without exception, with whom he came into contact with dignity and respect. And all who knew him loved him and had the greatest respect for him. And I was fortunate to have him as my closest friend for over 25 years, and I will tell you that there is not a day that goes by that I don't miss Paul. But I want to take a moment to recognize the co-chairs of the commission, Honorable Karen Lupuloff, Supervising Judge, Honorable Grace Hanlon, Supreme Court Justice, Chautauqua County. I have been there. Thank you. And thank them for inviting me to say a few words. Thank you also to our Executive Director, Matt Skinner, for all of his hard work, all 12 months of the year. But the person whom we honor today, the Honorable Richter, the first openly LGBTQ judge appointed to the Appellate Division First Department, is so completely worthy of this award, named for Judge Feinman, because she, like Paul, has always been a fierce advocate for human rights for everyone. And I've had the great privilege of actually serving as a colleague with Judge Richter in the Supreme Court, New York County, and also working alongside her and under her leadership in the New York State's Advisory Committee for Access of People with Disabilities, a committee that she created and for a long time co-chaired. And if I didn't know it before then, let me tell you, it is patently clear from her work on that committee that Judge Richter was exceptionally knowledgeable, passionate, innovative, industrious. And Roz, in my mind, you are a champion of justice. So, while on one hand, there was now record high support for LGBTQ people in the United States, let us not lose sight of the fact that this year and last, there was nonetheless a proliferation of online hate and disinformation against LGBTQ people. And in fact, GLAAD and the ADL told us that there were well more than 700 online incidents of violence and threats regarding them. And that's intolerable. And as a court leader, understand that my commitment to eradicating all forms of bias, be it based on race, gender identity, expression, religion, sexual orientation, age, or ethnicity, is deep and it is unwavering. But actually, it's not just me. It's incumbent upon all of us to speak out when we hear an anti-LGBTQ remark or witness any sort of identity-based hate, and we simply cannot ignore toxic anti-LGBTQ extremism. So I'll give you the words of Albert Einstein. If I were to remain silent, I'd be guilty of complicity. So again, thank you for letting me share in this ceremony to honor Paul, to honor my friend Judge Richter, and to speak today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Judge Kaplan. Next, we have the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, the Honorable Rowan Wilson. Thank you so much for being here, Judge.
Good evening and happy Pride Month. Thank you for, I have to make it a little taller, for having me here to say a few words. It's always a little bittersweet for me to be at anything that mentions Judge Feinman, who's my colleague for much too brief a period of time. I do see his portrait as I'm sitting on the bench arguing cases, but it's particularly poignant when Justice Kaplan is here or somewhere where Judge Feinman is mentioned, because I know of their deep friendship. And I remember vividly the naming ceremony for the courtroom downstairs, downtown, that Judge Kaplan was really appropriately broken up about. It's sad, but this is, as she said, a joyous occasion also, because we can remember Judge Feinman, we can remember his contributions, and we can also celebrate Justice Richter and her tremendous contributions as well. I do want to thank the co-chairs, Judge Lupuloff, Judge Hanlon, Executive Director Skinner, for putting this together and for the work they do every day. In 1957, James Baldwin wrote a letter to his friend and editor Saul Stein. Stein had then recently pushed Baldwin to collect several of his essays that he published in various magazines and to consolidate them into a memoir, which was published as Notes of a Native Son in 1955, Baldwin's first work of nonfiction, which is now regarded as a masterpiece. Stein and Baldwin were close friends. The two of them went to high school together. Baldwin later wrote that he had never considered himself as an essayist until Stein suggested it. The two collaborated extensively on early drafts of Notes of a Native Son, and both men later wrote that the book was a product of their friendship and their mutual trust. I mention all this as background so you can appreciate the context and authenticity and vulnerability in which, in 1957, 2 years after Notes of a Native Son was published, Baldwin wrote a letter to Stein. In the letter, Baldwin wrote, "Please get over the notion, Saul, that there's some place I'll fit in when I've made some real peace with myself. The place in which I'll fit will not exist until I make it. The place in which I'll fit will not exist until I make it." Take a minute to think about the simultaneous recognition that the world has no place for certain people, but that those very people are able to affect change. Although I never met Richard Failla, the trailblazing judge for whom this commission is named, I think Baldwin's words would have resonated with him. Justice Failla dedicated his life and career to creating and calling for inclusive spaces. He was not only the first openly gay person elected to New York Supreme Court, but also a vice president of the Gay Men's Health Crisis, which tried to educate and create safety and community in the frightening early days of the AIDS epidemic. In 1986, Justice Failla received the Fund for Human Dignity's Howard Brown Memorial Award, and his acceptance speech was an impassioned call to create inclusive spaces in society. Specifically, he called for funding to create community centers for members of the LGBTQ community. Both Justice Failla, who died at age 53, and Judge Feinman were taken from us too early. But because of their work, because of the commission's work, and because of the work of people like Justice Richter, the places missing in Baldwin's time are being made. We now have many more inclusive spaces than we had in 1957 when Baldwin wrote his letter to Stein, or than we did in 1986 when Justice Failla received his award from the Fund for Human Dignity nearly 40 years ago. But I think everyone in this room knows that the work of building and accepting an inclusive society at large is far from complete. I'm thankful for and committed to supporting the work of the Commission and to ensuring that all members of the LGBTQ community who work in the unified court system and who appear before our courts feel that they have a place to fit in, one that we are helping to make secure, one that is ready to accept and include them when they walk in the door. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Judge. The next speaker we have is the Honorable Angela Mazzarelli. She is a retired Associate Justice of the Appellate Division, First Department. She's also a member of the Failla Commission.
Now, can it come down low enough? I'm not sure.
I think so. You're right.
Good evening. Thank you for the kind words. And it's an honor to be a part of the commission and to participate in this event this evening. For me, this ceremony is very, very meaningful because Paul was a very special person to me and was a wonderful person. And Roz is a very special person and wonderful person. I first met Judge Richter when she was a trial judge we immediately formed a connection, partly because we were so short. We could talk to each other. You know, I always make a joke about Mayor Beam, but nobody here even knows who he is probably, or was rather. But he used to have, in every hotel where he spoke, Beam was very short, he had a box in front of behind the podium so that he could get up on it and be seen. And that's where the true name for the Beam box comes from. Not from that, you know, thing that they have for musical equipment, but that's the real Beam box. And maybe we should get one, Judge Wilson. What do you think? Anyway, we cemented our friendship really when you came here to the Appellate Division, and we had a chance to spend some time together and work together and really get to know each other. And working as a part of a team of appellate judges, you have the opportunity to see a person in all sorts of different settings. You can be in agreement with the person and therefore you're great friends, and sometimes you can take on an adversarial relationship because you disagree. And of course, the key to all of that is to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. And Roz, you mastered that skill, and you had all the other characteristics necessary to be a part of the appellate team. I got to get page 2 before page 3, right? Roz is a judge, and I know this personally, was always very thoughtful and well prepared. She listened carefully to counsel and her colleagues, and after considering all of the issues, came to a well-reasoned and clearly expressed decision. She also always considered the impact of her decision on the litigants, especially when there were children involved. When we were on a bench together, I always could talk to her about the cases and we could conference them, and I think that you really get to know a person by the positions that they take on cases. What is important to them shows their character, and Roz showed herself to have a superb character. As I said, Roz was always concerned about the effect that a decision would have on people, and she was able and knowledgeable about the many kinds of cases we have here in the Appellate Division. In this courtroom, you see and hear every type of case in the world. You see and hear every kind of person in the world. That's one of the most marvelous things about serving here. You see and hear every aspect of life in this courthouse. There's nothing that is not known by these judges. People from all walks of life come here. People from the most economically disadvantaged in our society and the problems which go with that, and people with startling wealth and its problems, if you can believe that. We have street vendors and we have presidents of the United States of America that come to this courtroom with great frequency, I'm told. And Roz handled each of these matters. I don't know if you got the president, because I think you left in time, right? With dignity and intelligence and thoughtfulness. She also had the strength to make a hard decision when necessary. And as I said, I always enjoyed being with her on a bench because I felt comfortable with our decisions, and I knew that she was a great judge, and when you left, I was very lonely. You were across the room from me. You were like my roommate. And I know as a private attorney, Roz is still a great lawyer, as she was a judge. She works hard, she works well, and she works for the betterment of underserved people. And she's always been involved, as everyone has discussed, in all sorts of organizations to better the lives of people in the LGBTQ community. She's a tireless worker. As I said, when she came here, we cemented our relationship, and we also became good friends together, sitting here in this really, truly majestic bench. Isn't it majestic? In this amazing court, in this magnificent room, we became social friends too. We shared many happy times with our partners, the 4 of us, Roz, Janet, my husband Steve, and me. One thing we enjoyed together, besides good restaurants and good food, was baseball. And although the 3 of them are diehard Yankee fans, they were always nice to me. I'm a Red Sox fan. And they were kind to me, even when the Red Sox won, which does occasionally happen, as we saw this weekend. And you learn, I think you also learn a great deal about a person by getting to know the individual that they choose as a life partner. And Roz's choice was Stella. I had the honor of officiating at the wedding of Roz and Janet in this very courtroom. The two amazing people sharing their beautiful relationship and their love was all in attendance. And I think many of the friends that were here that day may be here tonight. And I hope so, because it was a wonderful day that day when we had that beautiful wedding. And let me just say, I think Roz is one of the most generous and caring persons. As an example of that, we had Hurricane Sandy at that time. If you remember, we were sort of neighbors. You were on 23rd Street and Steve and I were on 38th Street. And we all lost our electricity for days. You had to move out of your apartment, and eventually we did. And I will never forget you calling me. Roz called me to see if I needed help. I should have been the one calling her to see if she needed help. But you got the jump on me, Roz. And you're still doing wonderful things for people. You're still helping out. You continue to give me a ride to places. And believe me, not everyone in New York City who has a car will take you anywhere. They'll say there are lots of taxis, go with the taxis, but not Roz. Roz comes, she even takes me home. She comes along, we get in the car and off we go. So I can recount many instances of Roz's selfishness, kindness, and generosity. And there are too many to recount this evening. But let me just close by saying that this award is meant to recognize someone who best exemplifies Paul Feinman's values, kindness, and willingness to lift up members of the LGBTQ community in the courts and the law. And the Honorable Rosalyn Richter meets all of those criteria. I can't think of anyone more deserving. And Roz, I thank you for being your wonderful you.
What a wonderful tribute to a friend and a colleague. What a blessing your friendship is. The next speaker is the Honorable Marcy Kahn, who is also a retired Associate Justice of the Appellate Division, First Department, and she was the founding co-chair of the Failla Commission. Judge Kahn.
Thank you, Justice Hanlon. I am so glad to be part of this ceremony honoring two judicial superstars, Paul Feinman and Roz Richter, both dear friends of mine. I knew both of them before either of them launched their judicial careers, and I served with them both on this very bench. And I'm just wondering if the justices of the Appellate Division First Department who also served with both Paul and Roz would raise your hand for a minute. Yes, see, there are a bunch of us. Very good, thank you. So it's wonderful to have this ceremony in this courtroom, and I thank deeply Presiding Justice Dianne Renwick for making this possible, along with her staff. And as you've heard, it is so fitting that Roz is receiving the Richard C. Failla Commission's award honoring Paul's career. Roz, like Paul, did her undergraduate work at Columbia University. Both of them were well known as leaders of the LGBTQ legal community before assuming their judicial duties. Both were inaugural members of the Failla Commission, and each one made key contributions to its development in its formative years. Both were founding members of the International Association of LGBTQ+ Judges. And they both always knew the importance of building relationships, both within the LGBTQ community and with other communities, as well as with colleagues at the bar and on the bench. A word about Paul, first of all. Paul arrived in New York County Supreme Court in the 1980s as an energetic advocate for his Legal Aid Society clients, which is how I first met him. He was extraordinarily generous in sharing his energies with other LGBT lawyers, especially those aspiring for judicial office. And he gave greatly of himself by leading every judicial association he ever joined. He served as president of not only the LGBTQ Bar Association of Greater New York, LGAL, but also the International Association of LGBTQ plus Judges, the Association of Supreme Court Justices of the State of New York, the New York City Association of Supreme Court Justices, and also he was presiding member of the judicial section of the New York State Bar Association. We on the Failla Commission and Paul's fellow members of LGAL were so proud to be with him on Pride Day in 2017 when Governor Andrew Cuomo honored Paul at the New York City Bar Association and marched with Paul, his beloved husband, Robert Ostergaard, and many of us as Paul assumed the long-awaited role of the first openly gay judge of the New York Court of Appeals. We miss him very much. By this award, we seek to preserve his memory and his values. Now about this year's recipient of the PGF Award, Rosalyn Richter. I first met Roz 4 decades ago, before either of us had started our judicial careers, but we both then had experience as prosecutors and as LGBTQ activists. It was in the mid-1980s, and Roz had just been chosen to join us on the National Board of Directors of the Lambda Legal Defense and Education Fund. At that point, Roz was already an icon in the lesbian and gay rights movement. I can still recall the hush coming over the group as Roz entered the room and took her seat. I think all of us on the board, which then included some very heavy hitters in the movement, felt we were in the presence. I certainly did. And this was only 1985. But by then, although Roz was only 12 years old at the time, she had made a name for herself in the 1970s at the Gay Activist Alliance and the legendary Firehouse. Now, is there anyone in this room other than Roz who remembers those two places? Yeah? Oh, thank you, Deborah Silver. Okay. And also, she had made a name for herself as the very first paid staff attorney at Lambda Legal. She joined the board as we were fighting for protection under the New York City human rights law and seeking to bar discrimination in New York against people with HIV/AIDS, even though the White House was in its 5th year of refusing to acknowledge the AIDS epidemic or say the word AIDS. The very next year, the Supreme Court announced its decision in Bowers versus Hardwick, which upheld a state statute criminalizing gay sex between consenting adults. It was no surprise to any of us on the board, nor to any who have worked with Roz since, that Roz jumped right into the fray and devoted her tireless efforts to continuing to change history. She has continued to serve on boards of major LGBTQ nonprofit service organizations, helping to guide them in meeting the challenges of the 21st century over the years. As for Roz's professional accomplishments, you know that she served as an administrative law judge, a supervising judge, and a Supreme Court trial justice in both civil and criminal matters before being designated to the Appellate Division in 2009 by Governor David Paterson. However, not everyone knows that Roz has taught at 3 law schools, teaching hundreds of law students what all lawyers should know about domestic violence. She is a multi-chapter contributor to the preeminent legal casebook on domestic violence. She has developed courses for Columbia Law School on access to justice, as well as an innovative clinical program to counsel litigants whose families are at risk. Within the court system, Roz has also served others who are marginalized or voiceless. She has co-chaired the Unified Court System's statewide advisory committee on access for people with disabilities and has served as a member of the Permanent Judicial Commission on Justice for Children. Outspoken as she has been in those court system roles, Roz has been even more radical in her retirement. As a pro bono counsel at a major international law firm, she sued Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for his state's discriminatory policy against young transgender athletes. And she was among the leaders of the national revolt by women jurists over the indifference of their national organization to the safety concerns of their LGBTQ members. She secured her law firm to assist her as pro bono counsel to the rebels, resulting in the creation last year of the New York Women Judges Association, Inc., a 501c3. Our president, Marcia Hirsch, Supreme Court Justice, is here. And of course, our guiding light through the rebellion, Justice Betty Weinberg Ellerin, is also here. We never had a prouder moment than when Chief Judge Wilson installed our officers and cheered us on. Our membership now has swelled to more than 80 members. I'm going to close with Paul's statement at his Senate confirmation hearing, which reflects his own professional history and can equally apply to that of our current awardee. He said, "Certainly, my entire career has been about promoting equal access and equal justice for all, and striving to add to the diversity of perspectives that the court considers. Both Paul and Roz have provided long records of doing exactly that. They have both been leaders among leaders, setting examples for the generations that follow. Congratulations, Roz, and thank you very much."
Extraordinary. Now I'd ask the co-chair for the Richard C. Failla Commission, the Honorable Karen Lupuloff, to come up. She is a family court judge here in New York County. She's a supervising judge in New York County, and she is going to present the award to Judge Richter. Thank you.
The last time I was in this building, the last time I sat in one of these seats, was in 1985 when I was sworn in here. My mother and father came, my maternal grandmother came. I was figuring out my life internally and externally. I joined the Manhattan DA's office, figuring out my life, and then one day I had the privilege and honor of having a case before Richard Failla. That experience for me was such an eye-opener because here was this wonderful, strong, conservative, powerful judge, a gay man. And I thought to myself, Lupuloff, maybe it's okay. Years later, I had the honor and privilege of meeting Justice Richter. And I thought to myself, you know, Lupuloff, it really is okay. You could say who you are. You could be who you are. You count just like everybody else counts. Look at these powerful judges. Now, I want to say one other thing about Judge Failla because our wonderful Paul, whose name is now for a blessing, was in the Legal Aid Bureau that was in the same grouping as my bureau, Trial Bureau 30 in the Manhattan DA's office. He and I had cases against each other. What a lovely man he was. And I think that the experience I had appearing before Judge Failla and having that path open to me, I would assume, I would guess that Paul had that same feeling, that same wonderful opening and feeling, it's okay. Look at Judge Failla. So today, there could be no better person that any of us could think of who deserves this honor in Paul's name than Justice Richter. She has been a shining light and a path for many people in this room and many people coming behind us. You have been a shining light and a path for me, and I thank you for that. So in thinking about the leader that you are, the trailblazer that you are, the frontiers person that you are, I thought of some quotes of some of the leaders of the world that I'll just end by sharing with you. Most of the things worth doing in the world had been declared impossible before they were done. Louis Brandeis. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. John Quincy Adams. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. Douglas MacArthur. Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Ralph Waldo Emerson. And finally, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. These are the quotes that, Roz, speak of you and are about you. I now am so very honored on behalf of the Failla Commission to award you as this year's Paul Feinman recipient. Congratulations, Roz. Oh, with me?
Okay. I'm not a judge, but I get to say, be seated, please. Wow. I'm a little speechless, but I have remarks. So thank you, and thank you. Thank you to the Failla Commission for this extraordinary honor, including Matt, the Executive Director. Thank you to all of tonight's speakers. I won't mention everyone, but I'm truly for Blungit. If you don't know what that is, I'll tell you later. I'm overwhelmed, but I'm going to get through this. Thank you to the Chief Judge and the Presiding Judge, my friends and colleagues who spoke. I also want to give a shout out to the other lesbian appointed with me, Judge Gary, who came all the way from Albany. It's been a pleasure to have you. Before I get into remarks, I really want to acknowledge Judge Ellerin, who is here tonight. And without whom, I'm not sure any of the women in this room would have become judges. And if you don't know, Judge Ellerin is about to celebrate a milestone birthday of 29. And so I would just like to wish her many, many more. May you live to 120 and beyond. It means a lot to receive an award from the Failla Commission and an award in honor of Judge Feinman, and you've heard so much about him. I couldn't possibly, in the time I have, say how much Judge Feinman meant to everyone in this room. I met him when I first started to run for Supreme Court, which as an appointed judge was a long, difficult process. Paul was involved in Democratic politics and was incredibly kind, helpful, and just said, keep going year after year after year. Later, we met when he was working for Justice Mazzarelli, and it was a true privilege to serve with him on the First Department. I saw firsthand his work ethic, kindness, and commitment. As you have heard, he was beloved by his colleagues, and in case you didn't know it, he was truly devoted to his mom, something we shared because I too was close to my mom. Now, we did root for different baseball teams. He was a Mets fan, but since I was friends with Judge Mazzarelli, I could be friends with Judge Feinman. And it was always amazing to me that notwithstanding his passion for the Mets, he knew exactly what was happening in every Yankees game because he was there for his mom. Paul was truly a remarkable son and a remarkable friend. He left us too soon, and I am privileged to be on the board of the International Association of Lesbian and Gay Judges Foundation with others in this room, where we have established a scholarship fund in Paul's name. It is important that we recognize trailblazers and continue to honor them. I also knew Dick Failla, after whom this commission is named, and in fact, it was Dick's service as an administrative law judge that led me to leave a job I loved greatly at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. And I recognize Barbara Underwood, who is here, and taught me so much. I thought if Dick could be a neutral and be gay and get a job as a judge, maybe I could too. It is hard to believe that next year will be the 50th anniversary of my coming out in my college years. And for those 50 years, I have been involved in the LGBTQ community. From college on, I have been out. And while there were many, many professional opportunities that I missed out on, especially in the early years of my career, because I was so out, and this was even before the internet, I would not have done it any differently. It has always mattered to me to be out, to be honest about my identity, to not have to worry about names and pronouns and different experiences, and most importantly, to work in places where I could be myself. I will forever be grateful to the people who gave me the opportunities that have shaped my career, and some of you are here, and I am not going to mention people, but truly I am grateful. And while there were slights, insults, and a few very painful homophobic moments along the way, there were so many people who were allies to me in my professional journey. It is impossible in the time I have to outline 50 years of progress. Just the fact that I could be here, that I could be a judge, would have seemed impossible when I came out. It would have seemed impossible to me in law school. It would have seemed impossible to me when I sat somewhere in the back row with my parents as a young lawyer being admitted to this court. And it would have seemed impossible when I took a job at Lambda only a few months after graduating law school, when literally every single person in my life told me I would never have a career with that on my resume. Well, they were wrong. And honestly, as Judge Kahn mentioned, I've been doing this long enough that at one point it would have seemed impossible that the court system would create an LGBT commission, which we fought for quietly and loudly for many years. The early years on the bench, and Judge Kahn was there, as were others, were incredibly painful and challenging times. The AIDS epidemic was in full force, and there was great anxiety in the court system, especially on the criminal side, about what it meant to have individuals with AIDS or who were HIV positive, especially as defendants in the courtroom. So much has changed, and it is the people in this room, those who I have served with, those who came after me, who helped achieve this change. We all should be proud. But the past few years, especially since I have left the bench, have been challenging ones for the LGBT community. And I know, because I teach at a law school, that unfortunately young law students are feeling pressure, wondering if they should be less out, to take that law school pride group off their resume. But speaking only for myself, I say don't give in to that temptation. Of course, I understand my journey is not one that many people were willing to take, and I can't tell other people what to do with their careers. But I hope that my experience and my success is helpful to those who are wondering if you can have a career and still be out. I believe we give power to those who oppose equality by remaining silent and being invisible, and then they can say they don't know anyone who is gay. It is a scary time, especially for those outside New York who live in states that have passed severe laws restricting transgender rights. But I've lived through the years of Anita Bryant and the anti-gay legislation of the 1980s, and I became a lawyer when sodomy was illegal in most of this country. And I choose to focus on the progress that has been made while recognizing that it takes effort to ensure that progress continues. I would like to give a personal shout out and thank you to the law firm that I joined after I left the court system for their willingness to take me on and then allow me to do cutting-edge pro bono cases to preserve LGBT equality. It was a privilege to be there, and I saw the commitment of those who were in the community and supportive of the community. Indeed, the amount of pro bono work that is being done by firms large and small on behalf of diversity, equity, and inclusion is remarkable. And I salute every lawyer who finds time in his or her professional life to do pro bono work, whether it is cutting edge equal protection challenges, helping someone with a name change, or just doing an evening at a legal clinic. In closing, I want to salute the judges who every day stand up for what they believe is right, apply the law equally, and make the courthouse a welcoming place to all. Representation and diversity matter, and I congratulate the Failla Commission for the work that they are doing and that you will do in the year ahead. Again, I am humbled for this award, and I thank you for this honor.
All right. That concludes the program. I want to thank everyone again who's helped put this together. It was such a special evening. If I can just ask a quick favor from everyone who is a speaker, could you maybe join over here for a group picture? And we'll meet everybody downstairs for the reception. Thank you so much.